Chosen one, God is breaking the silence now, and the first words rising over your life are almost too tender to carry. I hear the Father saying, I am sorry you had to survive the silence without knowing what it meant. You are not receiving this by accident. A higher hand has guided this moment, because the truth that was sealed over your life can no longer remain hidden. For so long, you thought the silence meant absence. You thought the closed doors meant rejection. You thought the delay meant heaven had forgotten your name. But the truth is deeper than that. God was not silent because you were unworthy. God was silent because the full explanation would have broken the old version of you. Some doors were closed to protect your calling. Some people were removed to protect your spirit. Some answers were delayed because your destiny needed formation before exposure. And now, the veil is lifting. This is not God apologizing because heaven failed. This is the Father speaking to the wounded place in you that felt alone while protection was happening behind the scenes. Stay with this, because once you understand what the silence was hiding, you will stop grieving what God was actually using to save you. Chosen one, this is not a casual message. This is for the part of you that kept believing, even when your belief had no evidence to hold on to. This is for the part of you that kept showing up, even when your heart was tired of being strong. This is for the part of you that stopped explaining the pain, because every time you tried, people either minimized it, misunderstood it, or made you feel like you were too much. And if you listen until the end, you are going to understand why the silence did not mean rejection, what God was protecting when He closed those doors, why some people were allowed to misunderstand you, what heaven recorded when no one else noticed, and how to walk differently now that the truth is finally being revealed. Not with fear, not with pressure, not with confusion, but with a deeper peace, the kind of peace that comes when your soul finally says, now I understand why God did not explain it sooner. Because chosen one, the silence was not empty. It only felt empty because you could not see what was happening behind it. You saw the unanswered prayer. God saw the danger attached to the answer. You saw the person leaving. God saw what they would have done to your spirit if they stayed. You saw the delay. God saw the version of you that still needed healing before the promise could be safely carried. You saw a closed door. God saw a room that looked like opportunity, but carried a hidden cost your heart was not ready to pay. And this is where the truth begins. The first hidden truth is this: God's silence was not rejection. Let that reach the place in you that has been bleeding quietly. God's silence was not rejection. You thought it was, because rejection has a voice. Rejection whispers, if God loved you, He would have answered by now. Rejection whispers, if you were truly chosen, the door would have opened. Rejection whispers, if heaven cared, you would not still be waiting, still healing, still trying to make sense of the same wound. But rejection is not the voice of the Father. Rejection speaks in panic. The Father speaks in peace. Rejection makes you chase what God is trying to remove. The Father teaches you to release what is no longer safe for your becoming. Rejection tells you the silence means you are forgotten. The Father reveals that silence can be a covering. And I know this is hard to receive when you have cried over things you never got an answer for. I know it is hard to believe silence can be love when silence was the very thing that made you feel abandoned. I know it is hard to call it protection when it felt like being left alone in a room with your own questions. But God is not asking you to deny the pain. He is asking you to stop giving the pain the wrong meaning, because the meaning you attach to a season can either heal you or imprison you. If you call the silence rejection, you will keep carrying shame that was never yours. If you call the delay punishment, you will keep apologizing for a process God ordained. If you call the closed door failure, you will keep grieving something God blocked out of mercy. If you call the waiting wasted time, you will miss the evidence that something inside you was being formed the whole time. Chosen one, there were nights when you questioned everything. You wondered if you had missed a sign. You wondered if you had disappointed God. You wondered if maybe other people were right about you. Maybe you were too emotional. Maybe you were too sensitive. Maybe you expected too much. Maybe you believed too deeply. But listen carefully. Your sensitivity was not the problem. Your depth was not the problem. Your faith was not the problem. The problem was that you were trying to understand a protected process before the appointed time. And some things cannot be explained while they are still being constructed. A foundation does not explain itself while it is underground. A seed does not defend itself while it is buried. A child in the womb does not look like the fullness of what it is becoming. But hiddenness does not mean nothing is happening. Hidden does not mean forgotten. Buried does not mean dead. Delayed does not mean denied. Quiet does not mean absent. God was doing something in the dark that would have been damaged by premature exposure. That is why the silence had to stay for a while. Not because God was cruel, not because God was distant, not because heaven stopped caring, but because the answer you wanted would have opened a door before your heart had the strength, discernment, and identity to walk through it without losing yourself. And I hear this so clearly in my spirit. My child, I am sorry for the weight you carried while thinking I had turned away. I am sorry for the tears you wiped before anyone entered the room. I am sorry for the moments when my protection felt like my absence. But I never left you. I was nearer than your fear allowed you to feel. Chosen one, receive that gently. You do not have to force yourself to understand it all at once. Just let one sentence enter your spirit. The silence did not erase me. Say that inside yourself. The silence did not erase me. Because it did not. It did not erase your calling. It did not erase your value. It did not erase the promise. It did not erase what God spoke over you before people had opinions about you. There is a version of you that thought you needed constant confirmation to be safe. You needed people to understand. You needed the timing to make sense. You needed the door to open quickly so you could prove you were not crazy for believing. But God was slowly freeing you from the need to be constantly reassured by visible things. He was teaching you how to walk by a deeper knowing. He was teaching you how to stay steady when the surface looked confusing. He was teaching you how to stop measuring divine love by immediate results. Because, chosen one, if God gave you every explanation the moment you demanded it, your faith would never mature. Your emotions would be comforted, but your spirit would remain dependent on proof. And you were not called to live only by proof. You were called to live by alignment. You were called to live by peace. You were called to live by the quiet witness inside you that says, I do not understand everything yet, but I know God has not abandoned me. That is a different kind of strength. It is not loud. It does not need to perform. It does not need everyone to clap. It is the kind of strength that sits in the middle of unanswered questions and still refuses to call God unfaithful. And that is what was forming in you. You thought you were only waiting, but you were becoming. You thought you were only losing time, but you were gaining depth. You thought you were only being hidden, but you were being protected from hands that would have mishandled what God placed inside you. Now, we come to the second hidden truth. The silence was not only the absence of an answer. The silence was a shelter. And for someone listening right now, that sentence is going to heal a wound you have been carrying for years. The silence was a shelter. It did not feel like one. It felt cold. It felt lonely. It felt confusing. It felt like watching other people move forward while you were still standing in the same place, asking God why nothing was changing. But what if nothing was changing because God was keeping certain things from reaching you? What if the delay was not a wall, but a shield? What if the door that closed was not an insult, but a rescue? What if the person who left was not proof that you were hard to love, but proof that God refused to let someone stay close enough to keep wounding you? You wanted the answer because you wanted relief. God withheld the answer because He wanted your preservation. You wanted the door because you wanted movement. God closed the door because He saw the hidden trap behind the opportunity. You wanted the relationship because you wanted connection. God allowed the distance because he saw the version of you that would disappear trying to keep them comfortable. This is why some things ended without a full explanation. This is why some prayers were answered with silence. This is why some paths became blocked, even when you were sure they were supposed to open. God was not punishing you. He was interrupting what would have interrupted your destiny. There were rooms you wanted to enter because they looked beautiful from the outside. They had the appearance of increase. They had the sound of validation. They had the feeling of finally being seen. But God saw the atmosphere inside those rooms. He saw the envy you would have walked into. He saw the pressure that would have bent your spirit. He saw the people who would celebrate your gift but ignore your exhaustion. He saw the places where your name would have been used, but your soul would not have been honored. So he closed it. And because he closed it without explaining everything, you thought he was being silent. But he was being merciful. There is a kind of mercy that feels like disappointment at first. There is a kind of protection that feels like rejection at first. There is a kind of redirection that feels like loss at first. There is a kind of divine love that does not give you what you begged for, because it knows what the thing would do to you after you received it. And this is where your story begins to change. Because once you understand that the silence was protection, you stop begging for every closed door to reopen. You stop asking every person who left to come back. You stop treating every delay like a sign that you are behind. You begin to see that God was not only listening to your prayers, he was listening to what your future would need. Your future needed you whole. Your future needed you discerning. Your future needed you free from the addiction to being understood by people who were never assigned to carry your heart. Your future needed you strong enough to receive a promise without making the promise your identity. So God sheltered you, even when the shelter felt like isolation, even when the covering felt like silence, even when the protection felt like losing everything you thought you needed. And now the truth can no longer be hidden, because you are finally strong enough to see the mercy inside what disappointed you. But this is not the whole revelation. This is only the first door opening. Because after God shows you that the silence was not rejection, and after he shows you that the silence was protection, he has to show you something even deeper. He has to show you why certain people were allowed to misunderstand you. He has to show you why he did not correct every false word immediately. He has to show you why your name was placed in rooms where you could not defend yourself. Because, chosen one, their misunderstanding was not the end of your story. It was part of the exposure. And when you understand that, you will finally stop chasing explanations from people God was already revealing. Because, chosen one, sometimes the people who misunderstand you are not an interruption to the process. Sometimes they are part of what the process is revealing. And I know that may be hard to hear, because when you were misunderstood, you did not feel like anything holy was happening. You felt exposed. You felt misread. You felt like your heart had been placed on a table in front of people who did not have the tenderness to handle it. You tried to explain yourself. You tried to make your intentions clear. You tried to say, "That is not what I meant. That is not who I am. That is not what was in my heart." But the more you explained, the heavier it became. The more you defended yourself, the more they found new ways to twist your words. The more you tried to prove your heart, the more exhausted your spirit became. And that is when God began teaching you something deeper. Not every misunderstanding is meant to be corrected by your mouth. Some misunderstandings are corrected by time. Some misunderstandings are corrected by fruit. Some misunderstandings are corrected by God allowing people to reveal what was already inside them. This is why he did not always rush to defend your name in the way you wanted. Not because he agreed with what they said. Not because he ignored the damage. Not because your pain did not matter. But because some people had to reveal themselves before you could be released from them without guilt. Chosen one, listen carefully. God did not correct every lie immediately, because some lies were exposing who was safe and who was not. There were people who did not need facts to judge you. They only needed an opportunity. There were people who were waiting for a moment to misunderstand you, because they were already uncomfortable with what God placed inside you. There were people who smiled near you, but secretly felt offended by your growth, your sensitivity, your discernment, your quiet strength. And when the misunderstanding came, their reaction revealed their posture. Some people asked questions because they loved you. Some people made accusations because they wanted control. Some people waited to understand. Some people rushed to condemn. Some people protected your name in rooms you were not in. Some people used your silence as a weapon against you. And God allowed you to see the difference. That was exposure. It hurt, but it was exposure. It confused you, but it was exposure. It made you feel alone, but it was exposure. Because if God had corrected everything too quickly, you might have stayed attached to people whose hearts were already turned away from honoring you. You would have kept giving access to people who loved your availability, but not your becoming. You would have kept explaining yourself to people who were not seeking truth. They were seeking a reason to keep you small. You would have kept calling it loyalty when it was actually fear of being disliked. You would have kept calling it forgiveness when it was actually self-abandonment. And God loved you too much to let you remain blind to what was quietly draining your spirit. This is why their misunderstanding was not the end of your story. It was a mirror, not a mirror showing who you are. A mirror showing who they were when they could no longer benefit from your silence, your softness, your constant availability, or your need to be approved. You thought their words defined you. They did not. Their words revealed them. You thought their rejection measured your value. It did not. Their rejection measured their capacity. You thought their silence meant you were not worth defending. It did not. Their silence showed you who could stand beside you when there was no reward for doing so. Chosen one. This is why you must stop chasing explanations from people God was already exposing. Do not spend your sacred strength trying to convince someone to see what they have already decided to deny. Do not keep reopening a wound just to prove you were bleeding. Do not give your peace to someone who only feels powerful when you are defending yourself. There is a holy restraint being formed in you, and that restraint is not weakness, it is wisdom. There was a time when you thought silence meant defeat. If you did not respond, they would win. If you did not explain, they would believe the wrong thing. If you did not defend yourself, your name would be destroyed. But now God is teaching you a different kind of strength, the kind that does not need to answer every accusation, the kind that does not run after every rumor, the kind that does not beg to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding, the kind that says, God saw it, God heard it, God knows the truth, and I do not have to bleed in public to prove I was wounded. That is maturity. That is authority. That is what hidden formation looks like. And this is where the next truth begins. While they were misunderstanding you, God was forming something in you that could not have been formed in comfort. You thought you were only surviving the situation, but you were being shaped. You thought you were only enduring the silence, but you were learning authority. You thought you were only losing people, but you were gaining discernment. There are 3 things God was forming in you during the silence, and you need to hear them because they explain why the process had to be so private. The first thing He formed in you was discernment. Not suspicion, not bitterness, not fear. Discernment. There is a difference. Suspicion looks at everyone and expects betrayal. Discernment listens for peace before giving access. Suspicion is wounded and defensive. Discernment is healed and aware. Suspicion says, I cannot trust anyone. Discernment says, I will not give sacred access to everyone. God did not bring you through misunderstanding so you would become hard. He brought you through it so you would become clear. Clear about who has access to your inner world. Clear about which rooms require your presence and which rooms only want your energy. Clear about the difference between someone who loves you and someone who only loves how useful you are. Clear about the difference between a divine connection and an emotional attachment. Before this season, you may have confused closeness with safety. You may have believed that if someone stayed near you, they were assigned to you. You may have believed that if someone needed you, God wanted you to carry them. You may have believed that love meant giving people unlimited access, even when their presence drained your spirit. But now you know better. Access is not the same as assignment. Need is not the same as covenant. History is not the same as alignment. And love does not require you to let someone destroy what God is building in you. That is discernment. And if you are listening right now, while your heart is still trying to make excuses for someone God already exposed, let this sentence become a quiet command inside you. I do not have to reopen what God closed, just because I miss what it used to be. Hold that inside your spirit. You do not have to say it out loud. You do not have to move. Just let the sentence stand like a gate inside your mind. I do not have to reopen what God closed, just because I miss what it used to be. That is not cruelty. That is stewardship. Because some doors are closed by God, but reopened by your loneliness. Some people are removed by mercy, but invited back by guilt. Some patterns are broken by grace, but rebuilt by your fear of being alone. And this time, God is teaching you to protect the freedom He gave you. The second thing He formed in you was inner authority. This is the part of you that no longer needs everyone to agree before you obey. This is the part of you that can feel peace even when people do not understand the path. This is the part of you that can make a quiet decision without turning it into a public announcement. Before this season, you may have needed confirmation from every direction. You wanted someone to tell you that you were doing the right thing. You wanted someone to validate what God had already whispered. You wanted people to understand your timing, your choices, your withdrawal, your change. But the silence trained you to listen deeper, because there were moments when no one could confirm you. There were moments when no one understood the weight you were carrying. There were moments when even the people who loved you could not interpret what God was doing in you. So you had to learn how to stand on peace. Not excitement, not pressure, not fear. Peace. The kind of peace that does not always explain itself, but it settles the spirit. The kind of peace that remains even when the mind still has questions. The kind of peace that says, this path may not be easy, but it is clean. This decision may not be popular, but it is aligned. This door may not make sense to everyone, but I know what God placed in my spirit. That is inner authority. And chosen one, this is why God could not allow you to remain dependent on constant approval, because the next season of your life will require decisions that not everyone can understand. There will be moments when obedience looks strange. There will be moments when your peace offends people who benefited from your confusion. There will be moments when your silence looks like pride to people who are used to having access to your explanations. But you cannot carry a divine assignment if every step must first be approved by people who do not carry the weight of your calling. Mary did not have all the explanations when the impossible interrupted her life. She had a word. She had trembling faith. She had a yes that did not come with full understanding. And sometimes that is what obedience looks like. Not certainty about every detail. Not comfort in every moment. Not applause from everyone watching. Just a yes that comes from a place deeper than fear. The third thing God formed in you was compassion without self-abandonment. This is one of the hardest lessons for a chosen one, because your heart is deep. You feel what others feel. You sense pain even when people hide it. You can walk into a room and notice what others ignore. You have carried people in prayer. You have carried people emotionally. You have carried people silently. You have made excuses for people who hurt you because you could see where their hurt came from. And that compassion is beautiful. But compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. Compassion without discernment becomes exhaustion. Compassion without truth becomes a prison. God did not call you to become cold. He called you to become whole. There is a version of love that keeps giving until there is nothing left, then calls the emptiness holiness. But God is not asking you to disappear in order to prove you are loving. You can forgive and still not go back. You can love and still create distance. You can understand someone's pain and still refuse to be harmed by their patterns. You can pray for someone and still stop giving them access to your peace. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom with a healed heart. And this is where many chosen ones feel guilty. You feel guilty for outgrowing people. You feel guilty for not being as available as before. You feel guilty for not explaining every change. You feel guilty for protecting your spirit. You feel guilty for choosing quiet when someone expected access. You feel guilty because the old version of you was easier for people to reach, easier to use, easier to predict, easier to pull back into old cycles. But chosen one, hear this clearly. Boundaries are not betrayal. Distance is not hatred. Silence is not cruelty. Growth is not arrogance. Healing is not an apology. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that survived by keeping everyone comfortable. You are allowed to protect what God is building in you. You are allowed to become less available to chaos. You are allowed to stop translating your soul for people who refuse to listen. You are allowed to leave the room emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, even before people understand why your presence has changed. And you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming who God was forming in the silence. This is the hidden formation: discernment, inner authority, compassion without self-abandonment. These are not small things. These are marks of someone who has been trained in the dark. And now, the story goes even deeper. Because while God was forming you, He was also keeping record. This is the truth that many people forget. Nothing done in secret before God is ever wasted. Not the prayers you whispered when your voice was tired. Not the nights you chose not to retaliate. Not the moments you let people think what they wanted because you knew defending yourself would cost more peace than it would restore. Not the kindness you gave when you were empty. Not the forgiveness you practiced before you felt ready. Not the obedience no one clapped for. Not the private battles you won while still looking normal on the outside. There is a hidden record over your life. And no, this is not about God keeping score in a cold way. This is about heaven honoring what earth overlooked. People may have missed it, but God did not. People may have dismissed it, but God did not. People may have called it nothing, but God did not. People may have walked away without acknowledging the cost, but God did not. God saw it when you stayed faithful with a broken heart. God saw it when you chose peace instead of revenge. God saw it when you blessed people who never apologized. God saw it when you had every reason to become bitter, but something inside you still whispered, "I will not become what hurt me." That matters. It mattered then, it matters now, and it will matter in what God does next, because there is a kind of restoration that does not simply return what was lost. It makes the soul complete again. There is a word connected to this kind of restoration, a word that carries the feeling of wholeness, peace, completion, and things being made right. It points to something deeper than getting back an object, a relationship, a job, or a season. It points to being made whole in the places where loss tried to divide you from yourself. That is what God is doing in you. He is not only bringing back what was taken, He is making you whole where the taking wounded you. He is restoring the part of you that stopped expecting goodness. He is restoring the part of you that felt foolish for believing. He is restoring the part of you that became afraid to hope because disappointment had trained your nervous system to expect another blow. And this is why the next part of your healing is not only spiritual, it is also internal. It is also in the mind. It is also in the way your body and thoughts learn to respond to silence, waiting, disappointment, and uncertainty. Because when you spend too long in survival, your mind begins to treat peace like danger. When you spend too long waiting for something to go wrong, calmness can feel unfamiliar. When you spend too long carrying unanswered questions, even good news can feel suspicious. That is why some chosen ones receive a word from God, but still feel foggy inside. They believe, but they are tired. They trust, but they are tense. They hope, but they brace for disappointment. They pray, but their mind keeps replaying the old wound. And if that is you, do not shame yourself. It does not mean you lack faith. It means your inner world has been trained by pressure, and God is now retraining it through truth. There is a deeper connection between the spirit that believes and the mind that must learn how to receive peace again. And soon, I am going to speak about that more directly, because for some of you, the next level is not about trying harder. It is about being recalibrated from the inside, so the truth God is revealing does not remain only something you hear, but something your whole being can finally receive. But before we go there, you need to understand one final thing about the hidden record. God did not record your pain to keep you trapped in it. He recorded it so nothing would be lost. He recorded it so the enemy could not convince you it was meaningless. He recorded it so the people who mishandled you would not become the authors of your story. He recorded it so when restoration comes, you will know it was not random, it was not luck, it was not coincidence. It was not because people finally decided you had value. It was because God had been watching the entire time. This is why you cannot let bitterness write the ending. Bitterness will tell you to remember the pain in a way that keeps you chained to the people who caused it. But wisdom teaches you to remember the pain in a way that reveals what God brought you through. Bitterness says, "Look what they did to me." Wisdom says, "Look what God preserved in me." Bitterness says, "I lost too much." Wisdom says, "I was formed in ways loss could not destroy." Bitterness says, "No one came for me." Wisdom says, "God was with me even when I could not feel Him." That is the shift. That is the freedom. That is the place where the silence begins to lose its power over your memory. Because once God gives meaning to what you survived, the past can no longer use confusion to control you. Chosen one, if this is speaking to the deepest part of you, place one simple sentence in the comments when you are able. God saw it all, not for attention, not for performance, but as a witness from your own mouth that the hidden record exists, that your obedience mattered, that your tears were not invisible, and that your story is not being defined by the people who failed to honor it. God saw it all, and now you are standing at the edge of the deepest revelation. The silence was not rejection. The silence was protection. The misunderstanding was exposure. The hidden season was formation. The private pain was recorded. But even that is not the final truth. Because God is about to show you why the answer could not come to the old version of you. He is about to show you why the truth had to wait until now. He is about to show you that the explanation was not missing. It was waiting for the version of you who would be strong enough to carry it without running back to what God delivered you from. And when that truth opens, you will understand why the silence is breaking now. Not earlier, not later, but now. Because now, chosen one, you are not the same person who first entered the silence. That is the truth God has been waiting to reveal. The answer was not missing. The answer was not late. The answer was not being withheld because you were unworthy. The answer was waiting for the version of you who could receive it without running back to the place God delivered you from. That is why the silence is breaking now. Not because God suddenly remembered you. Not because heaven finally decided to care. Not because you cried enough, suffered enough, or proved yourself enough. But because something in you has changed. The old version of you would have taken the explanation and used it to reopen the wrong door. The old version of you would have heard the truth and tried to prove it to people who were committed to misunderstanding. The old version of you would have received a glimpse of your calling and then handed it to anyone who offered temporary approval. The old version of you would have mistaken visibility for validation, movement for purpose, and access for love. So God waited. He waited while you healed enough to stop choosing familiar pain. He waited while you grew enough to stop calling every open door divine. He waited while you became strong enough to let people misunderstand you without surrendering your peace. He waited while your faith became less dependent on evidence and more anchored in alignment. And now, the sealed truth can open. Chosen one, The truth was not hidden from you because God wanted to confuse you. It was hidden because revelation without maturity can become a burden. If God had shown you everything too early, you might have tried to fix what he was ending. You might have tried to rescue people he was exposing. You might have tried to force a door that was closed by mercy. You might have tried to carry a promise with a wounded identity. And a wounded identity will turn even a blessing into pressure. This is why some answers come only after your character has caught up with your calling. This is why some doors open only after your need for approval has been broken. This is why some people are removed before the explanation comes. Because if you understood the reason while you were still attached, you would have negotiated with God instead of trusting him. You would have said, but maybe they can change. You would have said, but maybe the room is not that dangerous. You would have said, but maybe I can handle what keeps harming me. You would have said, but maybe if I explain one more time, they will finally understand. And God knew that one more explanation would have kept you chained to a place you were being called out of. So he stayed quiet. Not because he did not love you, because he did. I hear this in my spirit with weight. My child, I was not ignoring you. I was guarding what would have broken if it arrived too soon. I was not withholding love. I was protecting your future from the parts of you that were still willing to abandon yourself for acceptance. Chosen one, that is the revelation. The silence was not only protecting you from people, it was protecting you from the old version of yourself. The version that begged to be chosen by those who could not honor you. The version that apologized for having boundaries. The version that gave sacred access to casual hands. The version that confused being needed with being loved. The version that called exhaustion loyalty. The version that thought peace had to come with permission. God did not want that version of you carrying the next season, because the next season will require a different you, a quieter you, a stronger you, a more discerning you, a you who can love deeply without disappearing, a you who can walk through open doors without worshipping them, a you who can receive blessing without becoming addicted to applause, a you who can be misunderstood and still remain whole. That is who has been forming in the silence. You are not just someone who survived pain. You are becoming a truth carrier. You are becoming someone who can no longer live by illusion, no longer betray your inner knowing, no longer smile in rooms where your spirit is being warned to leave. You are not just someone who was wounded. You are becoming a wounded healer, not because your pain was beautiful, but because God refused to let your pain become useless. The place that broke you is becoming the place where wisdom flows. The wound that once made you question your worth is becoming the place where you recognize the wounded in others without letting them destroy you. You are not just someone who had to fight quietly. You are becoming a spiritual warrior, not the kind who attacks people, not the kind who needs conflict to feel powerful, but the kind who stands, the kind who does not collapse under pressure, the kind who refuses to become bitter just because bitterness would be easier. You are not just someone who has lived between worlds. You are becoming a bridge. You understand pain, but you are not owned by it. You understand silence, but you are no longer afraid of it. You understand rejection, but you are no longer defined by it. You can stand between what happened and what is coming, and you can say, I did not die there. I was formed there. That is why the truth can no longer be hidden, because you are no longer the person who needed it hidden. You have passed through enough darkness to carry light with humility. You have lost enough to understand what cannot be bought. You have been misunderstood enough to stop needing every person to see you correctly. You have waited long enough to know that divine timing is not the same as human urgency. And now God is not only revealing what happened, He is revealing who you became while it was happening. That is the part you must not miss. The explanation is not only about the people who left. It is not only about the doors that closed. It is not only about the delay, the silence, the pain, the nights when your faith felt like it was hanging by a thread. The explanation is also about you. You became deeper. You became clearer. You became harder to manipulate. You became more honest with your own spirit. You became less impressed by noise. You became less available to chaos. You became more willing to choose peace, even when peace requires distance. And this is where you must learn how to walk after the silence breaks. Because revelation is not the finish line. Revelation is an invitation. Now that you know the silence was not rejection, you must stop living like rejected people live. Rejected people chase. Chosen people align. Rejected people beg for explanations. Chosen people discern what deserves response. Rejected people reopen old doors to feel wanted. Chosen people protect what God has already delivered. Rejected people confuse attention with love. Chosen people wait for fruit, consistency, peace, and truth. So from this moment forward, do not rush to prove what God is still unfolding. Do not run back to old rooms just because loneliness knocks. Do not hand your healed self to the same patterns that wounded your old self. Do not make announcements to people who only respect your transformation when they can benefit from it. Move differently. Think differently. Pray differently. Choose differently. When an old door tries to reopen in your emotions, do not ask only, "Do I miss this?" Ask, "Does this still carry peace?" When an old person returns with familiar words, do not ask only, "Do they want access?" Ask, "Have they changed in fruit, not just in tone?" When an opportunity appears suddenly, do not ask only, "Does this look impressive?" Ask, "Can my spirit breathe here?" Because not every open door is divine. Not every apology is transformation. Not every invitation is assignment. Not every delay is denial. And not every silence is absence. This is the wisdom God has been forming in you. Now, let this become an inward practice. You do not need to move your body. You do not need to stop what you are doing. Let this happen inside your spirit. Picture a sealed door within you. Behind that door is not a person, not a place, not a memory you need to chase. Behind that door is the truth God has been protecting until you were ready. Now imagine the door opening slowly, and as it opens, you do not see every answer at once. You do not need every detail. You do not need every name. You do not need every hidden conversation or every reason people did what they did. You see one sentence written in light. "I was not abandoned. I was being guarded." Let that sentence stand inside you. I was not abandoned. I was being guarded. Now, imagine every false meaning falling away from your past. The delay no longer says, "God forgot me." The closed door no longer says, "I failed." The person leaving no longer says, "I was not worth loving." The silence no longer says, "Heaven was empty." The misunderstanding no longer says, "My name is ruined." The waiting no longer says, "I am behind." The truth speaks louder now. I was protected. I was formed. I was recorded. I was prepared. I was loved in ways I could not understand at the time. That is how you walk after the silence breaks. You let truth rewrite the meaning of the memory, not the facts, the meaning. Because the facts may still be painful. What happened may still have happened. What they did may still have been wrong. What you lost may still matter. But the meaning changes when God enters the memory. What looked like abandonment becomes hidden protection. What looked like humiliation becomes exposure. What looked like delay becomes formation. What looked like loss becomes separation for purpose. What looked like silence becomes a sealed letter, opened at the right time. And now, chosen one, there is something practical I need to speak into this, because many people receive a truth like this in their spirit, but their mind still feels foggy. Their heart believes, but their thoughts keep circling. Their soul feels touched, but their inner world still expects disappointment. That does not mean you lack faith. It means you have been trained by pressure. When someone has lived too long in survival, the mind begins to expect pain, even in peaceful seasons. When someone has waited too long for disappointment, hope can feel dangerous. When someone has been misunderstood too many times, silence can start to feel like a threat instead of a shelter. And this matters because God can reveal the truth to your spirit. But your mind still has to learn how to receive peace. That is why clarity is not only spiritual, it is also mental. It is also internal. It is also connected to the patterns your mind has been repeating for years. There is a state where the mind becomes more open, more creative, more focused, more able to receive. Some call it flow. Some connect it to gamma brainwave activity, the kind of clear, awakened state associated with insight, learning, intuition, and moments where things finally click. And when I learned about this, it made me think about so many chosen ones who say the same thing. I know I was made for more, but I feel locked. I know God is speaking, but my mind feels cloudy. I know something is shifting, but I cannot seem to hold the clarity long enough to act on it. I know I used to feel more alive, more intuitive, more connected, but somewhere along the way, that inner brightness became quiet. And that is why I want to mention something gently here. There is a 7-minute audio tool called the Genius Song, designed around brain entrainment and gamma activation. I do not present it as magic. I do not present it as a replacement for prayer, wisdom, discipline, healing, or your relationship with God. I present it as a tool, something that may support the part of you that is trying to come out of survival and back into clarity. The idea is simple. You wear headphones. You listen for 7 minutes. You let the sound guide your brain toward a clearer state. No complicated practice. No long routine. No pressure to perform. Just a short daily ritual for those who feel led to explore it. And the reason this connects to this message is because some of you are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not spiritually weak. You have simply been living with a mind that has been trained by stress, disappointment, and survival for too long. Your spirit may be ready for the next season, but your mind may still be bracing for the old one. The Genius Song was created to help support that shift. There was a woman who had tried spiritual practices for years and still felt like the real connection was always just out of reach. She did not try this because she wanted hype. She tried it because she was tired of feeling disconnected. And after using the 7-minute ritual, she described the change in a simple way. She said it felt like life began speaking to her again through timing, clarity, and synchronicities she could actually recognize. Now, I am not saying your experience will look exactly like hers. I am not promising that one audio track will solve your whole life. That would not be honest, but I am saying this. If your spirit has been telling you that you need a simple tool to help quiet the fog and reconnect with the clearer version of yourself, this may be worth exploring. And I know what some of you may be thinking. You have tried many things. You have tried to meditate. You have tried to force discipline. You have tried to think positive. You have tried to pray harder. You have tried to push through mental fog by effort alone. And maybe you are tired of tools that sound good, but do not touch the place where the struggle actually lives. That is why this is different from simply trying to motivate yourself. Brain entrainment is not about forcing the mind through willpower. It is about using sound patterns to help guide the brain toward a different state. Think of it like a radio that has been stuck on static for years. You are not yelling at the radio to become clear. You are gently turning the dial until the signal begins to come through again. That is the picture. And if this resonates with you, I have placed the link in the description and in the pinned comment. The original price is $49, but the current special price is $39. And with it, there are also bonuses included, such as an additional audio for children, a classic book, a guided visualization, and an infographic to help reinforce better daily patterns. It also comes with a money-back guarantee, so if you explore it and feel it is not for you, you have that protection. But please hear this clearly. Do not search randomly for it on other websites. There are fake versions and copycat products using similar names. And those versions may not contain the actual brain entrainment technology. The safest way is to use the link in the description or the pinned comment, so you receive the original version, the bonuses, and the guarantee. And only explore it if you feel led. No pressure, no fear, no force. Because the real message today is not that you need a product to be chosen. You do not. You were chosen before you had tools. You were chosen in the silence. You were chosen in the waiting. You were chosen when no one saw you. You were chosen when your mind was tired and your heart was carrying questions no one could answer. The tool is optional. The calling is not. And whether you take that step or simply sit with the truth God is revealing right now, the invitation remains the same. Let God close the wound that silence opened. Let Him touch the place that thought silence meant abandonment. Let Him speak to the part of you that still flinches when doors close. Let Him restore the part of you that became afraid to hope. Because this is the moment where the old meaning breaks. The silence was not rejection. The silence was protection. The misunderstanding was exposure. The hidden season was formation. The private pain was recorded. And the answer waited until you were strong enough to carry it. Now let this truth settle over you like a sacred covering. In your mind, return to that sealed door. This time, the door is fully open. You see a letter with your name on it. Not your public name. Not the name people used when they misunderstood you. Not the name attached to your mistakes, your delays, your wounds, or your past. The name God calls you when no one else is in the room. Chosen, carried, covered, beloved, formed, restored, sent. And as you receive that letter, the old labels begin to fall. Rejected falls, forgotten falls, behind falls, too sensitive falls, not enough falls, abandoned falls, cursed falls, failure falls. They fall because they were never your true name. They were words attached to seasons you survived, but they were not the identity God gave you. And now the Father speaks over the place where silence once hurt you. My child, nothing you lost in obedience will remain unpaid. Nothing you surrendered in faith will be wasted. Nothing you carried in secret was invisible to me. I saw the night. I saw the tear. I saw the restraint. I saw the choice you made when bitterness would have been easier. And I am not only restoring what was taken, I am restoring you. Receive that, not as hype, not as emotion that fades when the sound ends. Receive it as a holy correction to the lie that said you were alone. You were not alone. You were being guarded. You were being shaped. You were being prepared. You were being led through a silence that would one day become testimony. And now that day is beginning. So, Father, for every chosen one receiving this, let the lie of abandonment break. Let the meaning of the past be healed. Let every false interpretation fall away. Where they thought silence meant rejection, reveal protection. Where they thought delay meant denial, reveal formation. Where they thought loss meant punishment, reveal mercy. Where they thought misunderstanding meant shame, reveal exposure. Where they thought hiddenness meant nothing was happening, reveal the sacred work you were doing beneath the surface. Give them the courage to stop chasing what you closed. Give them the discernment to protect what you are building. Give them peace that does not need applause. Give them strength that does not need revenge. Give them clarity that does not collapse when people misunderstand. And give them the grace to walk into the next season without dragging the old meaning behind them. Chosen one, you are not rejected. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not what they called you. You are not the silence you survived. You are not the wound they left. You are not the door that closed. You are not the version of yourself that begged to be chosen by people who could not recognize what heaven had already marked. You are the one who remained. You are the one who endured. You are the one who was formed in hiddenness. You are the one God protected when you thought you were being denied. You are the one who is now ready to understand what the old version of you could not carry. The truth can no longer be hidden because you are no longer hiding from it. The silence can no longer control you because God has given it meaning. The past can no longer name you because the Father has spoken louder. And from this moment forward, when you remember the silence, do not remember it as proof that heaven left. Remember it as the place where God guarded the truth until your spirit was ready. Remember it as the place where your discernment was born. Remember it as the place where your authority matured. Remember it as the place where your compassion became whole. Remember it as the place where God saw what no one else saw. And remember this, the silence was not the end of God's love. It was the place where He guarded the truth until you were ready to receive it. And now, chosen one, the truth can no longer be hidden.